Well, speaking of crime, the latest crime stats are now being delivered by the Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu. Let's listen in.
General Mchunu will come and unpack statistics and percentages. And thereafter, General Masemola will assume the stage to give a detailed account on arrests and convictions, which is very important in reporting crime. And this is the format that we're going to follow today. The annual statistics will be released later in September. That is the total for the whole financial year, no longer in quarter by quarter. We will do that later this year, just to give the public a clearer picture for the whole year. As Minister of Police, together with top management of South African Police Service, we have identified a number of priorities in the policing space, namely reducing the murder rate in the country, reducing illegal firearms, tightening controls over legal firearms, fighting gender-based violence and femicide, dismantling organized crime, including drug trafficking syndicates, cash in transit, extortions and kidnappings, tackling gang violence, and combating corruption, both within the SABC and across the country. Taxi violence is also receiving our attention. It's a task we are tackling together with my counterpart in transport, or colleague in transport, both nationally and in provinces. In the last few days, we've seen conversations and concerns about crime in South Africa taking a totally different turn. The term genocide got forcefully introduced to the scene in a distinctly foreign and strange way. It is claimed there is white genocide in South Africa. And as evidence, a lot of material has been put into circulation all over social media, including in the White House in the USA. These materials include pictures of crosses along a road between Newcastle and Normandy, which is part of the rural area in Newcastle, just to make specific reference to that one. Now we have respect for the United States of America as a country. We have respect for the people of the United States, and we have respect for the President of the United States, President Donald Trump. But we have no respect for his genocide story whatsoever. It is totally unfounded and totally unsubstantiated. We have noted doubt expressed by media houses in the US and in the UK and in South Africa, and we welcome that. There is doubt about validity of the stories that have been told about genocide in South Africa. South Africa is a full democratic state with a lot of NGOs, NPOs, and free media. They would have run headlines both locally and abroad on seeing the first sign of genocide. The picture of many crosses on both sides of a death road between Newcastle and Normandy in KZN flows from a Normandy registered case, 19 of 8 of 2020, where the incident occurred on the 30th of September that year on Hanover Farm. It's a sad story of Mr. G. Rafferty and Mrs. V.L. Rafferty. They were sadly murdered by criminals in their home. The incident sparked a very strong protest by the farming community in the area. The crosses symbolized killings on farms over years. They are not graves. They don't represent graves. And it was unfortunate that those facts got twisted to fit a false narrative about crime in South Africa. 3 suspects were arrested and sentenced for murder, and they are in jail. This alone debunks the claim that nothing gets done when crimes get committed in South Africa. 3 months ago, an American pastor got kidnapped in Nelson Mandela Bay. This led to an intensive search by South African Police Service. The suspects were arrested, and the pastor was freed back to America. Again, law was enforced as an answer to those who want to know what happens when crime gets committed in South Africa. We don't deny that the levels of crime in the country are high. We're very concerned about it. We confirm that crime cuts across all divides, rural and urban areas, and that's why we are currently intensifying the fight against crime and criminals themselves. Crime stats we are presenting today will show progress. We commend and encourage South African Police Service to fight on and harder. We will win. The crime statistics are based on crimes that get reported, and we see a decline in various categories of crime, as will be reported on later in detail. We note that there is more crime in terms of daily lived experience and a feeling of vulnerability generally in the populace of South Africa. It is for this reason that we are adjusting our methods of fighting crime and adapting to new trends and threats out there. We are seeking to explain to the public that when we talk about decline, we're talking real statistics, scientific statistics. But we know that the statistics that, as we say, show decline in various categories of crime don't necessarily include all criminal activities, especially those that don't get registered with the SABC, but are experienced by communities out there. And we note that there may be a feeling that we are underreporting, which is not necessarily the case. All the cases reported in SABC get recorded, get investigated, and they are at various stages of investigations. And later on, as I said, General Masemola will report about some details on investigations, on arrests, on convictions. The fourth quarter statistics as with the previous quarters, we are seeing significant decrease in most crime categories when compared to the same period in the preceding financial year, 1 January to 31 March 2024. While we have not yet reached our ultimate goal of a crime-free South Africa, these figures confirm we are indeed making significant progress. We must, however, be clear-eyed about the challenges that remain. During this quarter, sexual offenses, including rape and contact sexual crimes, along with commercial crimes, have shown increases. These are deeply concerning trends that demand renewed focus and urgent intervention, as indicated above. Let me be unequivocal. Every crime that is reported in South Africa is recorded and accounted for by South African Police Service. Every crime that is reported in South Africa is recorded and accounted for, whether it occurs in urban or rural areas. We are encouraged that all but one province recorded a decrease in murder incidents. That is Northern Cape, despite contributing only 2% to the national murder statistics, recorded an increase nevertheless, which can't be ignored and will be addressed with the targeted actions. The four high crime provinces, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape and Eastern Cape, contributed the bulk of murder incidents nationally, as before. Yet when compared to the same period last year, the current statistics offer some encouragement. Among the top 30 police stations for murder, 13 stations registered lower counts, and 2 stations recorded no change. We will continue to intensify efforts to reduce the overall murder rate in the country and other crimes. Regrettably, we must report the loss of 22 police officers, 6 while on duty and 16 while off duty, with 10 of those in Gauteng. This is not just a loss to the SABC, but to the entire nation. Let us be clear. An attack on police officers is an attack on the state, and those responsible will face the might of the law, as will be reported in terms of inclusion in the arrests that have been made, in some cases sentences. Now, on farm attacks, we have on a number of occasions appeared before the Portfolio Committee to account for our strategy in protecting rural communities, both outside and inside commercial farms. Our National Rural Safety Strategy is designed to create a safe and secure environment in rural areas. We are committed to fully realizing and implementing this strategy. As from this year, when we release the first quarter stats results, we will include a number of other categories of crime in the country to show a fuller picture. For an example, killings in communal rural areas, in urban areas, as well as on commercial farms, as we'll do today for the last time, at the exclusion of the other categories just mentioned. And therefore, for now, the stats that we have is for commercial farms. In the period under review, there were 2 farm owners who were murdered in South Africa. 1 farm dweller, 2 farm employees and one farm manager. In principle, we do not categorize people by race. But in the context of claims of genocide of white people, we need to unpack the killings in this category. The 2 farm owners that were murdered during the 4th quarter were African and not white. Further to that, the 2 farm employees and 1 farm manager were also African. It is the 1 farm dweller that was white. I do also want to mention that the recent farm murder, which occurred in Rosenekal in Limpopo, occurred in the 1st quarter of the current financial year and will thus be reflected in the release of the next crime statistics. The history of murders in the country has always been distorted and reported in an unbalanced way. The truth is that farm murders have always included African people and in more numbers. But what has been reported are just from one section of the community, that is the white community murders on farms, when in fact murders themselves include Africans, as we have just reported now. We want to reject the notion of land grabbing in the country from the point of view of police, but instead confirm that we do have cases of land invasions, and the 2 are very different. Land grabs make reference to some organized way and an approach by government wherein or communities allowed by government people to grab lands from owners to those who are grabbing, and it gets allowed. Invasions are unlawful acts by people in a sporadic way as a result of desperation for land. In many cases, wherever it takes place, it remains unlawful, and that's why cases get opened for that, and investigations ensue. Now, this land hunger, that leads to unlawful acts in a sporadic way by some people, small groups of people, has warranted expropriation without compensation to address the problem in a lawful and systematic way. Hence, the signing of that law by the President to allow the country in part to address land access disparities and sheer desperation for land in our country, more especially in peri-urban areas, as we know. And I need to emphasize that there are very little or no land grabs, even no invasions in rural areas. What you see here, and maybe fewer on farms, very few even on farms, rural farms. More invasions are in peri-urban areas in South Africa. It's a phenomenon that is there to be seen by all of us on a daily basis. So there are no land grabbings from rightful owners in the country. It's an unfounded allegation. It is an unsubstantiated allegation, and it remains so, even though it is said by people who are in high positions. My colleague in Land Reform and Rural Development has confirmed his concern against the misleading notion, and he will clarify that next week. Last quarter, we reported that a total of 12 farm murders had been reported, with one farm owner having been murdered. Notable progress has been made in respect of the investigations into these cases, and a number of arrests have been made. We do want to assure South Africans that the SABC prioritizes all types of crimes and conducts thorough investigations to ensure that justice is ultimately served. A total of...
All right, you're listening to the police minister. That's a bigger pardon, Senzo Mchunu, who is outlining the latest crime stats, and he spent a considerable amount of time pushing back against the messaging that we heard from the White House about a white genocide, land grabs taking place in this country, and farm murders being proportionately targeted at white people.